Hello, welcome back. I am Dr. Desiree Nicole. My students call me Professor Sanders or Dr. Sanders, but you can just call me Desiree because I am not your teacher. So this is just my 2 cents, my opinion, my channel where I just tell you about different experiences that I have had. My goal is for you all to succeed as nurses. If you're in nursing school or you're thinking about nursing school, this is the channel for you. And I just came on and wanted to tell a quick story. I became a registered nurse at 21, and just thinking back, sometimes I think, was that the best decision for me? I was a nursing assistant when I was in high school, so it was one of those things that I just continued on. I worked in a nursing home as a teenager, so I was 17, 18, 19 years old working in long-term care. I worked in nursing homes and I also worked in assisted living. So those are stories within themselves, but I definitely don't think that I was prepared to care for the elderly. And the reasons why I say that, just letting you know, the elderly, period, everyone has their own personality, but I feel like when we are younger, we kind of hold back. We don't tell everything. With the elderly, they're going to tell you everything. They're going to tell you how they feel. They are going to just kind of open up, and however you want to take it, that's how you are going to take it. So as a young person, as a teenager, I definitely responded wrong in many cases. I didn't have as much patience as I do now. So I don't know if that was the best decision for me. But long story short, I learned a lot. I had a lot of great experiences. When I worked in the assisted living, it was a little bit different. I was able to interact more with the residents who were there. In the nursing home setting, I worked mainly on dementia units. And like I said, I didn't have as much patience. I felt like I took things a little bit more personal than I should have. Overall, it was a wonderful experience, but I was so young at the time that I needed to work on my communication skills for sure, especially when it came to working with residents and patients who had some type of cognitive dysfunction or delay. So as time went on, I would interact a lot with the nurses there. The nurses were awesome. In long-term care, most of the nurses are kind of old school. They've been nursing for a long time, so they can give you a lot of wisdom. They can tell you a lot about their experiences. So I was thinking to myself, I should go ahead and become a nurse. I didn't have any nurses in my family. I didn't even really know anyone besides the nurses at the long-term care and assisted living. So I was really unfamiliar with the actual profession of nursing. So I went into nursing in a hospital program. So I started off really when my prereqs were at a community college. And then from there, I went on and I started in a diploma-based program. We went to school in a hospital. We actually went to school in the basement. The basement was full of maybe at the most 2 classrooms. We had a lab that was around the corner. We also had a library that the residents also shared with us. On occasion, we got to use the auditorium, so that was also available. So that was a unique experience. Like I said, at the time, I became a nurse at 21. So at the time, I was like 19, 20, 21. It was a 5-semester program. Once I became a nurse at 21, I felt a little bit lost in a way. In nursing school, you have one-on-one. You are usually assigned a patient. Some programs you're assigned maybe 2 patients. And then now some programs have an opportunity for you to work or, have your clinical day as the charge nurse. I didn't have any of that. I didn't have any experience talking to many people, because at the time I came pretty much right out of high school. I went to a community college and then I went to nursing school. I didn't have much life experience communicating with people in general. So now I have to talk to the nurses. I have to talk to the patients, and I have to talk to the physicians. That, right there was very much foreign to me. It caused me to have a lot of anxiety. I avoided calling the doctors at all costs. I would try to figure out a way to solve the problem. I feel like I picked up a lot of bad habits from other nurses because, like I said, I didn't have much life experience. And I thought to myself, hey, they've been doing it for years. If it worked for them, it'll work for me. That was not, to me, the best thing for me to do. So it was a lot of me following others. So I guess the follower following followers is kind of how I look at it now. And then, like I said, I did so much on my own because I was already a nursing assistant. So I didn't communicate well with the other nursing assistants when I became a nurse. So I was the one doing my bed baths. I was doing all of my toileting my patients and all those things. And it just took up so much of my time. So I was definitely that newer nurse who never got out on time. I was always staying behind. I was always behind on my charting because in my mind, I was the nurse, of course. I was the registered nurse, but I was more so functioning as a nursing assistant as well. So how on earth can you do both jobs? How can you be a nurse and be a nursing assistant? And you're running around, and like I said, I really didn't have a sense of direction. I just went off of whoever oriented me. So whoever trained me or whoever was around me or whoever the charge nurse was at the time, I took on a lot of their traits and their habits. And it took me years to figure out exactly how I wanted to practice as a nurse. It took me so much time trying to put pieces and parts together and develop my own style. I went back to school because I always felt like I didn't know enough. I wasn't efficient. I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't given the best care. So I did continue on in my education throughout my 20s and my 30s. So here I am today. So I wouldn't take anything back, but becoming a registered nurse at 21 was very challenging. It's much more challenging than so many people think because you are now the one who is responsible. You are now the one who's supervising others who need to be able to communicate any of your patient's needs in, less than 5 minutes. You need to be able to communicate, this is what's going on when you're calling that provider in the middle of the night. So you can't doubt yourself. You can't go back on, okay, does this make sense? And that's going to come up, but not when you're communicating your patient's needs to the provider. You need to be able to work as a team, work with other nurses, be able to talk to them. So I, just thinking back at 21, I didn't have all of those skills. I was still trying to figure out exactly who I was, the woman that I wanted to be, besides, the nurse that I wanted to be. So just something to consider for newer nurses. And, especially if you are young in age, to take some time to self-reflect at the end of your days. Don't rush right into the next shift. If you're feeling a certain type of way, kind of unpack that and figure out, why do I feel so anxious talking to a physician or nurse practitioner? Why do I copy what other people are doing? Is this the best practice? Is this exactly what I should be doing? Am I putting in this Foley the right way? Should I be going back and checking my book? Because so many times older nurses will say, that's the textbook, or that's how you all do it in school. This is how we do it here. And to be honest, what we do in school is based on, the textbook is based on what has been proven over time. Most textbooks are revised so many times. Like I think the textbook that I'm teaching out of is the 9th edition. That tells you that they've revised the textbook over and over and over. So to me, that gives me some validation that they have actually went back through their textbook and review the information. So don't always, completely disregard your textbook when you become a new nurse because this is how they do it on their unit. They could be doing it wrong, and that could cause you great problems in the future. If now you pick up these habits, it'll be very hard for you to break those habits once you get into your groove and you start doing the same things over and over. So I'm just letting you know some just giving you some of my, I guess, wisdom that I have developed over the years as a nurse, and just looking back at my career starting off at 21, things have definitely changed dramatically with who I am as a person, as an individual, and as a nurse. So don't beat yourself up, and don't feel like just because you're young, your ideas are not valid, that your opinions are not valid. I will definitely say if you feel like something is not right, something is wrong, or this is just completely off, those are usually some valid concerns that you're having. I would suggest that you maybe talk to a mentor or talk to the manager on the unit. It's hard. It might be a little bit challenging to find a mentor if you work on a unit with, a lot of turnaround. I worked on a med surg unit initially as a new grad for, I would say, like the first 6 months or so as a new grad. So you might literally be working with two other nurses who have just the same amount of experience that you have. You could be all new nurses who are working on the night shift. So it might be a little bit challenging. But with today, social media, find a Facebook group. You can literally type out a question and you'll have multiple people respond back to you. If you have a question about what's going on your unit, you might have a question about what's going on with the patient. As long as you don't have any patient identifying information in your question, I would shoot it to a Facebook. What do you all do for, say, heart failure? What do you all do for heart failure on your unit? And just see what people are saying. Don't feel like you have to practice by yourself. That's how I felt. I feel like I'm the registered nurse, so I have to figure out all of my problems on my own. That's not the mindset to have. I also jumped into long-term care as a registered nurse fairly quickly. I would not suggest that because I was the only registered nurse in the entire building. So although, yes, I'm a registered nurse, but that doesn't mean that I know everything to solve all the problems for this entire unit. You will sometimes be pushed quickly into leadership positions. You might be pushed into being the charge nurse quickly in situations such as in long-term care. You might be pushed into being a unit manager, a supervisor very quickly in long-term care. I would not advise it. I can go into details into a whole nother story time about me taking on a unit right away. I think I was maybe less than 2 years as a registered nurse, and they already wanted me to be a nurse manager, and I took on that responsibility. And it was very stressful. I had to cover call-offs. I had to communicate with nursing assistants who wanted to take long smoke breaks. It became very much stressful on me. I couldn't sleep. I didn't know which way was up. I was working extra hours. So please don't fall into that trap as well. So this is just my takeaway from, like I said, being a nurse at 21. So many people say, oh, I wish I would have did it when I was sooner, when I talked to a lot of my older students. But they just don't know that many times you bring such great life experience into your practice. That's essential. Nursing to me is one of the only areas that treasure life experience and nursing experience. So it's not always about your degree. I have a good amount of degrees, and on any given night, I would still want to work with the LPN who has years of experience as a nurse and life experience. I would rather work with them any day of the week than some other nurses who have advanced degrees and fresh out of school. So just letting you know, wisdom, life experience, nursing experience is extremely valuable in nursing. So if you're a newer nurse, if I would suggest anything, encourage you to find a mentor. If you can't find a mentor, join a Facebook group where there's other nurses in the area that you are practicing in. I would also say to do some self-reflection. You can do that before your shift or after your shift. You can write it down. You can do it just sitting in the parking lot, just to think about, how did your shift go? Or, if you're reflecting before your shift, think about what happened before. Don't be too hard on yourself. It will cause you so much anxiety if you're hard on yourself. You still have to encourage yourself. You still have to know that maybe things didn't go the way that you want them to go the shift before, but they can get better. They can definitely get better. I always tell new nurses the key to nursing is just to keep showing up with an open mind. And you will continue to learn. You will continue to grow. You'll learn from other nurses. You'll learn from your patients every single day. So just don't throw in the towel too quickly, and don't be, your biggest critic. You have enough of that throughout your nursing career. You have to encourage yourself and be willing to want to learn more. And lastly, I would say to take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your body. So still do things to just relax, do things to kind of continue your creative spirit. So if that's taking an art class or doing things that are creative, I would also encourage that as well. So those are my takeaways, and that's kind of from my reflection back on my career from becoming a nurse at 21, what I have learned over the years. Hope you get something from this message. Have a nice day.